How should I explain this? Oh yeah, Homer Simpson worksheet. Alright, this worksheet says that you're going to use the freehand drawing technique to try to draw Homer Simpson as accurately as possible. Where do I begin? This is going to be kind of difficult. I'm going to try to start with the top of the head here, get that curve down. The way I'm going about this is I'm actually scanning the image to the left, and then I'm recording the information that I scanned with my eyeballs onto the paper on the rectangle on the right. My eyes are constantly moving back and forth between the little tiny Homer Simpson reference image and what I am drawing. I have sped this video up so that I am not wasting your time today. As soon as this bad boy is finished here with his chest and collar and shoulder, add a little detail here for the hair. Not bad, not bad, not a bad Homer Simpson. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit more so I can clean my lines up here, so I can have somewhat of a nice, clean, free-handed drawing of the father Simpson. I wish I could draw this fast in real life. So, in looking at freehand drawing, some things that are difficult about that process. Well, the first thing comes to mind is that it's hard to maintain or keep the proportions of the drawing. I feel like my Homer Simpson looks like he's been a little stretched out. His proportions are a little bit off. Another thing in looking at this that's difficult is I'm not sure of the accuracy of Homer Simpson here. His nose looks a little too small. His eyes look a little too bubbly. It's just kind of difficult to check the accuracy from a freehand drawing. And another thing that's kind of hard is the shapes. I don't think that the shapes that I've drawn are very accurate. And I can kind of show you a couple places here where I don't feel that I've succeeded. If I look at his beard shape, that doesn't really mimic or match that reference image too well. And looking at the nose, I think I've had the nose extended too far out. If I draw a line straight up from the tip of his nose on the reference image, it goes to the right of his pupil, not through his pupil, so that's not accurate. His nose needs to be pushed back. So this is difficult. Moving on to grid drawing. Okay, you're going to accurately draw Homer Simpson using the grid enlargement technique. Draw all lines that are in each square. You can subdivide your squares and you can mark the halfway points to ensure accuracy. And I'm going to show you what those two techniques are here. The first thing that you might want to do to kind of help keep pace, keep organized, is to label your grids. So the reference image, I'm putting letters down the left side and I'm going to put numbers across the top. I'm going to do the same thing to my larger grid. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, and a 4. If I'm looking at this square here, that's square B3. Square B3 lines up on my large grid. So whatever's in B3, I want to draw there. Alright, that's how the grid process works. I'm going to zoom in here so that you can see what I'm doing. And I'm looking at square B1. And there's that Homer's forehead. And as I'm drawing this line, I'm trying to relate it to the outside edges of the grid lines. And I don't know that that's accurate, what I just drew there. So I'm going to do what's called mark the halves. I'm simply putting a little dash halfway on each side of the grid square. Okay, whatever I do to my drawing, I have to do to my reference image as well. So I'm marking the halfway marks in my reference image. Now, when I look at that forehead, I can tell that it starts a little bit above halfway on the left side, and it ends a little bit before halfway on the bottom there. So that's the kind of conversation that you need to have with yourself when you're going through this drawing process. If I move down to C1, I'm going to start with that little forehead nubby and part of his eyeball here. Again, I don't know if I'm if this is accurate or not. I'm just trying to compare it to the outside edges of the grid square. So this time I'm going to do what's called subdividing. I'm going to go ahead and actually draw a line straight through halfway vertically and straight through halfway horizontally. So in a sense, I've made smaller grid squares. What I do to my large grid, I have to do to my small grid. So I'm subdividing there. Now I'm shrinking the visual information. I can tell where that little forehead nub comes in, and I'm relating it to the subdivided lines. The eyeball comes up, there's just a little bit of a sliver of the top part of the eye, and then a little bit of a sliver of the left part of the eyeball. And the pupil looks like it's almost right where the subdivide intersects. Again, I'm going to move down to the next D1, and I'm going to subdivide. I feel like that's the best way for me to maintain accuracy, is to keep subdividing. And I can tell that the eyeball kind of comes down about there, and the nose comes out, and it's a little less than halfway to the left there. So again, if you keep having this conversation with yourself and relating the lines that you're drawing to the actual grid lines, you should be able to come up with a really accurate sort of representation or drawing of Homer Simpson. This should look 100 times better than your free-handed version of Homer Simpson. And here's my finished version. Okay, that looks a lot more accurate than my freehand drawn version of Homer Simpson. And you can notice, since I have larger grid squares, the image has enlarged. This is a nice process to use if you ever want to enlarge artwork. Again, subdividing, you can subdivide grid squares. I recommend doing that with the detail areas like the eyeballs. They're hard to get their shape down correctly. And another helpful technique is you can mark the halfway points, and that's kind of used for not so detailed areas. Grid drawing, baby. Good luck and go Butler. Grid setup. We're going to set up a sheet of manila paper with a large grid. In this case, it's a 3-inch grid. So I'm taking a yardstick and I'm marking every 3 inches from the left side of the paper. I'm doing this at the top and bottom of the paper. Take your pencil and lightly connect your measurements. Make sure the line goes through both of the measurement marks. Now I'm going to measure down from the top of the paper on the right side every 3 inches, and from the top on the left side every 3 inches. And we're going to go ahead and connect those measurements. What we should have are perfect grid squares that are 3 inches by 3 inches. These need to be squares. You're going to pick a cartoon character, which we will provide. You'll have some choices there. In this case, I've got Doofenshmirtz, and we're ready to start drawing. Just like we did with the Homer Simpson drawing, you're trying to draw square by square. You're relating the lines of the character that you're drawing to the lines of the grid. If you need to subdivide or mark the halfway points, if that helps you, please do that. Those are helpful tools in order to ensure accuracy. Remember, it's a lot easier to be accurate when drawing with a grid than it is freehand. So take your time, try to make this as accurate as possible, and when you get finished, you should have a nice accurate drawing. We're going to go ahead and take a thick Sharpie, and we're going to outline our drawing. Again, we want nice, smooth, clean lines. We don't want any chicken scratch. One solid line, same thickness. Take your time. Take a large eraser, and you want to go ahead and erase your grid line. That's why it's important to draw them lightly so we can get rid of them. The color wheel. Yeah, let's do a little bit of a lecture about color. So on the color wheel, there are 12 hues of the color wheel. Hue, which is a weird word, is basically just another name for color. So whatever color you see, the name of it, that's the hue of the color. There are primary colors, the three base colors that mix all of the rest of the colors. The primary colors cannot be created by mixing other colors. Therefore, they're called primary because we use those three colors, red, blue, and yellow. I always think of Superman, to make all of the other colors. Ooh, and here's a famous piece of artwork that emphasizes the primary color scheme. Notice you've got blues, yellows, and reds. Primary colors. The next set of colors are called the secondary colors. They are created by mixing two primary colors together. So if I mix red and blue together, I'm going to get violet or purple. If I mix blue and yellow together, I get green. And if I mix red and yellow together, I get orange. And here's a piece of artwork, a painting that emphasizes the secondary color scheme. Notice the green, orange, and purple. The last set of colors is called the intermediate colors or tertiary colors. They're created when you mix equal amounts of one primary color plus one secondary color. An example would be like if I mix yellow and green together, the result is called yellow-green. If I mix blue and green together, the result is blue-green, and so forth. There are six intermediate colors. So when we look at the color wheel, we can do some different things. The colors are organized, the chart is arranged in a certain way so that it can be useful to us as artists. And one of the ways is we can look at what's called warm and cool colors and neutral colors. So warm and cool colors are vivid and energetic and tend to advance in space. Ooh. Cool colors give an impression of calm, and they recede in space or go back into the distance. So by splitting the color wheel in half, we have one side which is warm colors. I think of like a bright sunshiny day, and the other side is cool colors. I think of kind of a dreary day or like a river or like a waterscape. So here is a painting that emphasizes warm colors. You've got rich reds and oranges and yellows. And here is a painting that emphasizes cool colors, purples, blues, and greens. Neutral colors are white, black, brown, and gray. They're neutral. They don't have a color property, and they're also nice to use along with other colors if you want to, like the background and whatnot. Here's an example of a painting. Hey man, what's up? Neutral colors. You got grays and browns and blacks and whites. Tints, shades, and neutralizing. When we talk about color, we talk about lighter versions of colors and darker versions of colors. We talk about tints and shades. If a color is made lighter by adding white, the result is called a tint. So if I add white to red, I'm going to get the color pink. So pink is a tint of red. The opposite of that, if I add black to a color, the result is darker. That's called a shade. So if I add black to red, I'm going to get what's called maroon, and maroon is a shade of red. All right, using the color wheel in terms of color relationships. The most simple relationship that's on the color wheel is called complementary colors. They're colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. So for instance, here we've got red and green. They're directly opposite of each other. Those are called complementary colors. What would purple's complement be? Well, if we go directly across from that, it's yellow. Hey, Vandalia Butler colors. Red and green. Complementary colors, they're vibrant when used at full saturation, can be jarring to the eyes. Whoa, they create high contrast. They neutralize each other when they're mixed together. Great. I don't care about that. Here's a painting that emphasizes complementary colors. The oranges are standing out or popping out against its complement blue, blue cloth. What are some other color combinations? Well, here's one. It's called a triadic color scheme. That's colors that are evenly spaced on the color wheel. So if you notice, they form a triangle. The most obvious triad or triadic color scheme are the primary colors. Red, blue, and yellow. They're evenly spaced. Also, the secondary colors are evenly spaced. They form a perfect triangle. Let's skip that. Another one is called split complementary color scheme. Basically what this is you pick a complementary color scheme. So I picked a color green, and if you go directly across to its complement, which is red, you pick the two colors that are next to red. So in this case, it's green, red violet, and red orange. Those three colors form a color scheme. Okay? A color scheme is just a set of colors. It's just a fancy word for a set of colors. So this would be a good color scheme to use, whether it's in a drawing or a painting or in a bedroom. These are harmonious together. Good for beginners, tough to mess up. So split complementary. Here are a few others. Analogous color scheme. That's basically where you pick three colors or three or more colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel without skipping any colors. Analogous. So here we've got yellow green, green, and blue green. You could also extend that out to blue and blue violet if you want to, or you could go the opposite way, but the colors have to be right next to each other on the color wheel. That's called an analogous color scheme. And here is a painting that shows an analogous color scheme. You got yellows, yellow greens, greens, blue. There's a wide variety of colors in there that are right next to each other on the color wheel. Monochromatic colors. This is where you pick a color, you use one color and its tints and its shades. If you will remember, a tint is where you add white to a color to lighten it, and a shade is where you add black to a color to darken it. Mono meaning one and chrome meaning color, so one color. And here is a good image. This image is not upside down, it's just a reflection in water. But the one color that was used in this was the color orange. The artist darkened the orange in the shadow areas by adding black to make a sort of a darker orange brownish color, and then in the lighter highlight areas they added white to orange to make it sort of a light peachy color. So this painting is created with one color plus its tints and its shades. Monochromatic color scheme. A few more color schemes that are useful. Square and rectangle color schemes. Pretty simple. Square color scheme is where you pick four colors that are evenly spaced around the color wheel. They form a square. And there's a rectangular color scheme. So when you pick the colors, there's four colors that form a rectangle. For instance, this is red, yellow, orange, green, and blue violet. You can turn that rectangle any way to get any four colors that you want. The color wheel. Thank you for listening to this color theory lecture. Go Butler. Okay, so we want to choose a color scheme for our character. For this project, we're going to choose a color scheme that is not the traditional color scheme of the character. Remember, we've got triadic color schemes that form a triangle, like red, blue, and yellow. Or we can do secondary colors that form a triangle. Those are only three colors. We could do split complementary, which or complementary colors, which would be 2 colors, or we could do split complementary, which would be 3 colors. Odds are you're probably going to want to have more than 2 colors. We could do analogous, which those colors are side by side on the color wheel. Or we could do a rectangle color scheme. They form a rectangle. We could also do a square color scheme. So that would be an example of 4 colors in a color scheme. I'm going to go ahead and pick a rectangular color scheme. Actually, maybe square. So I've got yellow, orange, red, orange, blue, violet, and blue, green. So that would be a rectangle color scheme. I'm going to go ahead and write that on there. So those are the 4 colors that I'm going to use for my project. You want to make sure that you label areas of the colors. So that way you know what color you're going to put where. So maybe blue violet's going to be the darker areas. The shirt and the hair and the eyes and the mouth, it's blue violet. The skin will do red orange. The eyes will do yellow orange, and maybe the vest will be blue green. Okay, so I've got my colors labeled, which is going to be a good thing to do before you start to add the pastel to your project. Before we start to pastel our project, we have a little worksheet here, and what I have are the primary colors of chalk pastel. I've got the secondary colors of chalk pastel, and I've got black and white. This is called a blending stump. It's used to blend pastel in detail areas. Notice it's pointy and it's dirty. To clean it off, you just hold it at an angle and you just rub it on the sandpaper, and that should clean the pastel off of it. Try to make it nice and clean so that you can use it to blend your colors. When you use pastel, it's made to spread around. You put it on and then you blend it with a finger. Okay? If you don't put it on thick enough, it's not going to blend together. So we want a nice smooth application. I tend to blend in tiny circles with my finger. It seems to smooth it out the best. So this is our color blending worksheet. This is where you're going to practice applying the pastel and blending and making colors. So I've given you the primary and secondary colors. You're going to have to mix the intermediate colors. So I'm going to put this on, make sure my finger is clean, and I'm blending in circles. Okay, the goal here is to try to make this look as smooth as possible. If you go outside the lines, you can take an eraser, and the pastel erases pretty easily. So intermediate color, I'm going to make yellow green, and that's basically mixing yellow and green. We always put our lightest color down first. It's our base layer. So yellow is lighter than green. I'm putting yellow down first, blending it out, and now I'm going to take and I'm going to add green. I don't want to put too much green on here because I want it to look like it's yellow greenish. I don't want the green to overpower it. And there we go, we've got yellow green. Green section here, so now you can see the difference between yellow, green, and yellow green. Pretty awesome. The bottom here, you're going to do a monochromatic scheme. So you're going to pick one color. In this case, I'm picking green. You can pick whatever color you want here. Blend it out nice and smooth. The next one, you're going to use the same color, but you're going to have white. And remember, white is a lighter color, so we want to put that on first. So I'm putting white down. I'm going to clean my finger off and blend that out. And now I can add my green to it. I don't want to put the green on too heavy. I want this to be a tint of green, so it's a lighter version. Ooh, look at that. And then the last one is one color plus black. So we're going to use green. Green is lighter than black. Put it on first. Blend it out. And then we're going to add some black to it. Black goes a long way, so don't put a ton of black on there. We want this to just be a dark green, not black. So now I've got my monochromatic scheme. Green, light green, and dark green. Go ahead and complete the rest of the worksheet. So once you have your color scheme figured out and you've completed your worksheet, you're ready to start to apply your pastel to your final project. I'm going to go ahead and erase my label marks and start in on the color. In this case, this is his eyeballs are going to be yellow-orange, so I'm putting my lighter color down first. Again, I'm blending this out in tiny circles. I'm trying to make it as smooth as possible. If your application is uneven, you can always put more on. Taking a little bit of orange here, putting it on pretty lightly to make a yellow orange. And we'll blend that out to make it nice and smooth. And now Doofenshmirtz has yellow-orange eyeballs. Awesome. Next color is red-orange for his skin. Again, I'm putting the orange down first because it is lighter than red, blending it out. Try to make it nice and even, and then we'll add our red on top of that. All the dark areas, black areas from the reference image, I'm going to make those blue-violet. I'm going to go ahead and put blue down first. Use my blending stump in the little tiny areas where my fingers can't reach. And we'll go ahead and add purple to make this a blue-purple or blue-violet. It's important that you keep an eraser handy that you can clean up your edges so that the colors don't mix together. I always like to put one color down first and then erase the edges so that the next color that I put on does not blend in with it. So the last part, we're making a blue-green. This is for the vest, and we should have the 4 colors in our color scheme, our rectangle color scheme. Go ahead and clean it up, and we're ready to do a background. So the background, we have a decision to make. I probably want to make the background the color that I used less, which would be the yellow-orange, just so that everything else pops out. If I tried to use blue-green, then it would blend in with the vest. That would look weird. Okay, you can also lighten a color. So if I wanted to make a tint of yellow-orange, I could do that, or a shade of yellow-orange, I could do that. That's an option. Once you're finished, you can start to outline. Notice I have a piece of paper under my arm so that my arm does not get pastel all over it. We're going to use a black colored pencil, and we're going to outline this thing to make the lines look nice and crisp and nice and neat. Take a look at a visual assessment rubric here of some student work. This project exceeds expectations. The drawing is very accurate, nice and clean pastel, nice color scheme. This project here meets expectations, drawn very well. The pastel could be a bit smoother. They could have put it on a little bit thicker, but everything looks great. This project does not meet expectations. It looks like the person did not try very hard. You all are way better than this. And here are some other student works. Sonic the Hedgehog, and Iron Man.